Most people think that you can truly only do one great thing at a time. Most people think that if you're growing your businesses, your relationships are going to suffer. Most people think if you're growing your businesses, your finances, your health is probably going to suffer. You're not going to eat the best quality food. You're not going to sleep the best time. You're not going to have the best hormones running through your body. Most people think that if you're going to work on your physical fitness, you need to step back on your relationships. You need to step back from the amount of effort you put in work. But what if you could truly achieve the trifecta? You could achieve the wealth, the money, you could achieve the health or the fitness, and you could achieve the relationships that we all crave for. And what if you could do them at the same time? And what if you could do them without putting in a lot of effort? You're putting in effort, but you're not swimming upstream. You're not fighting against a tidal wave of work. You're not stressing yourself out. You're not killing yourself, working hard, grinding and burning the midnight oil. And I'm not talking small feats. I'm talking growing businesses by multiple millions of dollars. I'm talking putting on muscle and burning fat and recomping an entire physique. And I'm talking being home in time for my daughter's birthday, making sure that I got her the best chocolate cake that she loves while living out of a suitcase for a whole year and traveling between 5 countries at the same time. If that's something you're interested in, if you're trying to achieve multiple things at the same time, stay tuned. You're going to love what this video has to offer. Hey guys, my name's Yahya. I am the founder and creator of Record Breaker, where I help you shatter past your highest ever money records again and again and again. I help you shatter your fitness and health records. Heck, I even help you shatter your emotional records. I don't know if that's a word, but I help you and I help my clients be the happiest they've ever been in the most fulfilling relationships. My objective with this channel is to share with you all the methods that I've used in my life and that I help my clients use so that you can level up your life and your game. And today I'm going to share with you one simple identity shift that I made in my life and that I help all my clients now make in their lives. This identity shift allowed me to grow a business, to launch a business in 2 countries at the same time, grow it to multiple millions of dollars, and change my health, change my biomarkers, drop my body fat levels, gain muscle more or less without going to the gym at the same time, traveling 24/7, living out of a suitcase. So, in order to understand how I did this, let's rewind back to me 20 years ago, 20 years ago, back in university. I used to work out. The workout bug bit me sometime in school and I kept working out. Back in the university, I used to work out. I had a schedule, I had a plan. I was big, I had muscle. And then I graduated and I entered the workforce. Now, as is the case with most people, I stopped working out because all my energy was now expended towards my work, climbing the corporate ladder, focusing on my career, focusing on doing well, focusing on going up, burning the midnight oil. So my workout suffered. I gained a bit of a gut. I wasn't eating the best quality food. I got fat. I wasn't sleeping the best because I had a lot of stress from work. So as the years went on, me being single, I looked like the father of 3 kids. You know, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I had a gut, I had horrible biomarkers, so on and so forth. Fast forward a couple more years, by the time I did have my first child, my daughter, when she was born, I developed autoimmune disease. I was on borderline diabetic. I had high blood sugar. Of course, I had a gut. The gut had gotten even bigger, and I was pretty bad health. And that's when I decided to get my act together. I quit smoking. My wife forced me to quit smoking. And I started going to the gym. So I'd finish work at about 8 o'clock, get to the gym, get a workout in, come home, eat relatively clean because I had zero understanding of nutrition, and pretty much pass out, go to bed. This went on for a while. And my philosophy, my understanding became that the more you eat, the better you're going to be. Not as in junk food, but as in good quality, high quality protein. And the heavier you lift, the more athletic and the more fit you're going to be. However, this didn't help. Eventually, it came to a point where when I looked at my blood work, I was a walking heart attack. I was pre-diabetic, autoimmune, had a bunch of things going wrong with me, and this is the first time I seriously decided to clean up my diet. And I went down the rabbit hole of experimenting with all sorts of diets, figuring out what works, how the body responds to nutrition. I started signing on with coaches. I signed on with Strength Camp. Shout out to Elliot Holtz. I got into powerlifting and learned biomechanics and how the body moves and how different joints are loaded, how different muscles works, etc., etc. Then I started working with Jerry Ward. Shout out to Jerry Ward, BioS3, who was the first fat loss coach I hired to train me on nutrition. And this whole journey, it was life-changing. I learned so many things about the body, about how different foods work for different people, why some people can eat rice, potatoes, whatever, and be fine, and other people can eat that and boom, blow up. I learned the importance of hormones and how sleep impacts hormone and how stress impacts hormones, so on and so forth. I pretty much went down the proverbial rabbit hole, and I loved it. And I understood that nutrition is pretty much 70 to 80% of the way we look, and working out is 20%. Nutrition, hormones, and sleep that determine the vast majority of how a person is going to look, think, feel, behave, and move. And working out is more or less 20-25% max. So needless to say, I was now hooked heavily, not only onto training, but working out and eating clean. I started carrying my meals to work with me. This went on for years. And obviously the pounds came off, the weight started to come off, the muscles started to come in. I started to feel better. My blood work improved. My biomarkers changed significantly. I reversed a lot of my issues like fatty liver, diabetes, etc., etc. And more importantly, something that I didn't realize because I was focusing on the body, right? More importantly, my mind began to change because I was living in this very stoic, disciplined, regimented, planned out manner where I knew exactly what I was going to do, and I did it for a couple of years. So all the typical temptations and all the horrible relationships that I had with food started to melt away. And when this happened, and the physical transformation happened, I started to notice people started responding to me differently in meetings, in negotiations, in pitches, at work, very, very subtly at first, but then it started to sort of get bigger and bigger. I started to respond to myself differently. I started to look at myself differently. I started to treat myself differently with more respect. With a lot more respect, I started to raise my standards. I started to do well in my career. I started going up the ladder very, very, very quickly. Very soon, I was the youngest divisional head in my company at that point in time. Most of my peers were 10 or 15, 20 years older than me, and I was in great shape. Now, I'm not saying this to show off. I'm saying this to explain to you that the subtle shift that had happened with me was that I stopped on an identity level. I stopped identifying myself as a person who used to work in a certain company, at a certain job, had a certain title. And I started identifying myself as an athlete who also happens to work. And this is where I started learning about identity shifting. So the biggest learning for me here was never let one aspect of what you do define you as a whole. So I stopped going from introducing myself as, "Hi, I'm Yahya, the head of consumer," to, "Hi, I'm Yahya," and that's it. I stopped feeling the need to get validation from people based on the title I had or based on the fact that I used to work out or any of those things, right? This was a major realization for me because I saw people during my career, people who'd been fired, people who'd retired. These were people whose entire identity was constructed around their title and what they did. And when that went away, they crashed. They were upset. They were depressed. They thought the best years of their lives were over. And I made a note to myself, never am I going to let my title or what I do at a gym ever define who I was and how I saw myself. Fast forward a couple more years, I developed a reputation as an exponential growth expert, growing businesses from 0 to 1 million in the first year, 3 in the second, 7 in the third. While this wasn't easy, it was pretty simple and I'd gotten it down pat because I was being hired by companies to set up their offices and their divisions and their businesses in parts of the world that were traditionally considered hard to do business in. I was good at it. This included everything from registration, licensing, importing the products, constructing the office, leasing the land, having deals with factories to manufacture product, hiring people, finance, legal, HR, marketing, sales, everything, training them, getting distribution in place, getting the products in place, then speaking to the end customers, an entire business. Ask anybody who's ever set up a business and who's ever run a business, they're going to tell you that the setup time, this time is the busiest, the most confusing, where the most struggle is involved, so on and so forth. So I was traveling almost constantly, sometimes between cities, other times between countries. More or less, I was traveling at the rate of twice a week, more or less living out of a suitcase. And while it was a busy time, it was also a very hectic time. And not only did this create demands on my energy and my mind, it was also very demanding in terms of time. So I was constantly chasing time. Now, keep in mind, I still hadn't started identifying myself as the guy with the job. I was still identifying as an athlete, a dad, an avid reader, a learner, so on and so forth, all the other things. But I was chasing time. So what I did was I decided to conduct an experiment for a whole year, because that's about the amount of time it would have taken me to set up those businesses. The experiment was I would continue to keep the identity aspect of an athlete, but stop working out the way I used to. So no more hard sessions in the gym, training 4 times a week, no more heavy lifting. Instead, I'd go weeks, sometimes even months without training at all. If I was lucky, if I got a weekend in, I'd go and train, and that was about it. What I did do, however, is maintain, in fact, retain the aspect of my identity, which was that of an athlete. What that meant was a disciplined mindset in terms of the food I was going to eat, the standards I was going to hold myself to, the way I was going to sleep. All the other things stayed constant from an identity point of view, except the actual act of working out. And I continued to eat like an athlete. Irrespective of the stress levels at work, no junk food, no sugary food, no cheat meals, none of that. I jumped on the keto bandwagon because I was chasing time, and keto allows you to pretty much eat once a day and just continue with your day as per usual. So it was perfect for me. And you can tell by the fact that this is the amount of attention I paid to the food I ate. I barely had time to eat. Keto was perfect because it allowed me to eat in a disciplined manner, eat only once a day to save all my time, and eat in a certain way that helped my body process the food efficiently. Now the results, and I also documented this probably at that point in time on my Instagram stories, the results were astounding. At the end of the year, I had not only managed to hang on to all the muscle mass I had, but I dropped my body fat by about 5 percentage points. It was mind-blowing. I did not work out. I mean, the entire year I must have worked out 10, 11 times. Total. I would walk in the morning for about 10-15 minutes max, get some sunlight while I did my thinking. That was it. I'd go on with my day. The only change I made was I would eat the same way as an athlete. I didn't stop. So not for a moment did I stop identifying myself as an athlete. And this was the second aspect of my learning, that the first thing you do is you make sure that you don't identify all of who you are with 1 or 2 aspects of your life. And the second learning for me was that if you start identifying with something, even if you don't have the most ideal conditions in your life, even if you don't have time, even if you're unable to execute like that person, as long as you're identifying psychologically, you also identify physiologically. Because you start thinking and behaving as that person. There are no struggles when it comes to food for an athlete. There is no temptation when it comes to food and other things in life for an athlete. It's all discipline based. It's all very structured. It's all, you have 100% clarity of who you are, what you should be doing, where you want to be in life, and how you're going to get there. And there is no confusion. So there is no dissonance in terms of, I'm not working out, does that really make me an athlete? No, you identify with that through your personality on a conscious and subconscious level, and the actions change to reflect that. I pretty much do that with every single one of my clients now. First, we figure out who they're identifying as right now and who they want to identify going forward. Who is their future self? What are the standards of that future self? What standards does that future self hold themselves up to? What do they put up with? What do they not allow themselves to put up with? How do they conduct themselves? How do they move? How do they walk? How do they breathe? How do they love? How do they think? What do they believe? It's that important. So for me, while I was traveling the world, I was being presented all sorts of delicious foods. Never once did it cross my mind to indulge. It's almost like I didn't see the food. Zero battle inside me going on in temptation, right? Most people, they give into temptation. They're like, oh, you put some cake in front of me, you put pizza, whatever your guilty pleasure is. You put that in front of me. I can't control myself. I need to have the chocolate. That's an identity problem because of the language you use. You need to have. Guess what you're identifying as? Someone who needs to have the chocolate, provided it's put in front of them. For me and for my clients, there is no struggle. I'll give you an example. Let's say you live in a world where people still use their own cars and they don't use Uber, right? Let's say Uber's there, but most people prefer using their cars. Let's say you need to get to a place. You go down and you find out that your car keys are no longer with you. Somebody took them and they're gone and you don't have money for an Uber, right? Are you gonna be tempted to break into someone else's car, steal that car to get to where you want to go? Or are you just going to walk? No one's tempted to break into a car so they can get to a place, right? And if they are, then that's a separate video for a separate person at a separate point in time, right? It is that easy. The struggle goes away. The moment you change on an identity level, struggle goes away. If it's not for you, it's not for you. End of story. No time is wasted, no effort is wasted, no willpower is wasted trying to not give in to the temptation of the food or whatever else it is that you struggle with in terms of temptation. So the lesson here and the reason why most people struggle and the reason why most people give up is because they spend their lives in this constant, chronic, daily struggle between things they know they should be doing and things they know they shouldn't be doing but are very tempted to do. And they more or less always give in to the things they're tempted to do. Why? Because they don't identify on an identity level. They do not think of themselves as a person who doesn't do things they're not supposed to do. They don't hold themselves to the standard that they should, which is why they accept all sorts of behavior from other people. They accept all sorts of crap and they also put in all sorts of crap into their own bodies with the food they eat, the media they consume, the information they have, the people they hang out with, the actions they indulge in that do not serve them. It's an identity problem. It's not an action problem. Most people try to fix the action, right? I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to clean up everything from my fridge. What are you going to do at 3 o'clock at night when you're depressed and you're missing ice cream or chocolate or whatever? What are you going to do? You cleaned out your house? It's ludicrous. People try to use willpower, right? I'm going to force myself through, right? Use willpower to have like a healthy breakfast. And then you go to work, you have a bunch of meetings, your willpower whittles down. Lunch, I'm going to have, grilled chicken with rice and greens. And that's it, because I'm sticking to my diet. You're right, you have your lunch and then there's a whole bunch of meetings, other things you have to do, whittles away your willpower even more, traffic, etc., etc. By the time you get home, my friend, your willpower is gone and you give in and you cheat your heart out. That's why most people cheat at night. Most people cheat with their favorite meals at night. Most people cheat on their partners at night because nighttime is when willpower is gone. Because people use willpower to try and change actions instead of fixing the identity. Instead of fixing the standard they hold themselves up to. Because if they do that, they don't need willpower. And you can use willpower for something better. Right? You have all seen people who don't have that struggle. You've all seen people, right, who once they decide to do something, it's almost like they don't see anything else. I, for the first time, experienced this during my days when I was learning about fitness and nutrition. I would not see food, like in my head. The food that I was taking with me to work was the food I was going to eat. Everything else was pretty much just invisible to me. Nope. Why? Because I had my eye on the prize. I was focused on the person I was becoming. I was enjoying the results I was seeing in the mirror. I was liking the way I was breathing, moving, all of those things. They were fulfilling me far more than the pleasure of the food. That's why I always say, stop seeking pleasure, start pursuing fulfillment. Fulfillment is far stronger than pleasure. Pleasure is only used to make up for the pain that we're feeling. Fulfillment disempowers the pain. Fulfillment completely takes over. It takes longer. You have to work harder. You don't have to give in to your relationships, your unhealthy relationships with food or other addictions, medicines, drugs, whatever shopping porn, whatever addiction you have. So with that said, I'm now going to share with you something super simple that's going to allow you to shift your identity. The first thing you need to do is identify one habit of yours that you know you shouldn't be indulging in. One thing you do that's bad for you, whether it's the junk food you consume, or your porn addiction, or your sugar addiction, or your shopping addiction, or your drug addiction, or your pharmaceutical addiction, whatever it is, doesn't matter, no judgment. Write it down. Then write down the person you want to be. How does that person think? What do they look like? What are their habits? What are their practices? So on and so forth. Then go back to the list of habits and pick one. Only one. Please pick only one. Don't make the mistake of trying to fix a whole bunch of things at the same time. Pick one thing you shouldn't do it and stop doing it for about 21 to 30 days. And the way you're going to go about it is every day when you wake up in the morning, refer to what you've written down about who you want to be, your future self, the person you want to be. Just quickly read over it, close your eyes for 2 minutes, and visualize being that person. Imagine not that you are going to become that person, imagine that you are that person. How do people look at you? How do you look at you? How do you move? How do you think? How do you behave? Just give it 2 minutes to internalize being the person. And then open your eyes and go about your day being that person for as long as possible. And the reason I say for as long as possible is because sooner or later, your subconscious conditioning is going to kick in and you're going to go back to being who you are right now. No problem. Do it again and again and again. Do it for 21 to 30 days. It's going to drastically shift you from being who you are right now with all the habits you don't like about yourself and all the list of things to do that you need to do but you haven't done yet. It's going to dramatically shift you to the other side. And this is where the magic happens. Because if you do it often enough, 21 to 30 days doesn't sound like a lot. Do it often enough and you are constantly sending conscious signals to your subconscious mind to start being someone else. And do it enough times and it becomes who you are. All of a sudden, you don't need to work hard to quit the habit. All of a sudden, you don't need to think about the habit. All of a sudden, there are no temptations. You're not tempted all of a sudden. If it's food, you're just not tempted because you've shifted on an identity level. Once you've done this, pick another habit that you don't like. Same thing. Pick another. All you need is 3-4 habits. If you've removed 3 or 4 habits from your system, by the time you do it, it's probably 3 months, you will have dramatically shifted your identity, which means the person you think you are, the place that person has in the world, the way this person expects to be treated by other people, the things you're willing to put up with and the things you're not, and the way you show up in the world. This is important because this is the identity shift you need, because no longer will you then need willpower for anything. You can pursue bigger, better, more fulfilling things. You will not be dopamine dependent. You will not be dependent on the pleasure kicks that you get from dopamine. Social media being another big one. And you're done. No more habits, no more problems. You will now be resolving and living life, doing well on multiple fronts at the same time. This is what I did. This is what I help my clients do. Speaking of habits, if you're interested, there's going to be a video here which is all about dramatic shifts in habit that I created for identity. And with that, boys and girls, I am done. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, tell me what is one habit that you're going to pick today and get rid of. And until then, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.